Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Emmy-nominated Composers Chat. My name is Freya Berkhout. I'm a composer. I recently had a feature film called Our Effed Up World that premiered at Fantasia Festival in Montreal, and I'm delighted to be here with these wonderful composers talking about their incredible Emmy-nominated work and their process. So please join me in welcoming them to the virtual stage. First up, we have Jeff Toyne, composer of Palm Royale; Jeff Morrow, composer of Mel Brooks' The 99-Year-Old Man; and David Stoll, co-composer of Hacks. Thank you all for joining us, and let's get into our questions. So first up, this one's for everyone. Every collaboration between directors, editors, composers, and music departments is different. What does the ideal creative conversation look like for you, and where do you begin your work? Jeff Toyne, let's start with you.
I think I would say that I like to begin by finding out and being sure about who are the decision makers on the project and whose opinion and voice and vision is the one that we're going to follow, or who has input to be accommodated. And if I'm lucky, it's not a really long list. And following that, whoever those people are, I want to know as much as I can about their preferences musically and with film and television. I think about it like if I was going to design a car for somebody, I'd want to know as much as I could about uh, what they're going to use this car for, what their driving style is, and it's possible to make a car for somebody without knowing anything about them. But I think the more that I can know about the filmmakers that I'm working with, the quicker I can get to something that's going to match, with their vision, and it's easier for them to work with. So ideally, yeah, be able to find out who's in charge here, and what's going on, and how can we get to know each other as quickly as possible.
That makes sense. How about you, Jeff Morrow?
I think, thinking about an ideal collaboration, it's working with people who are, who have strong opinions, but then also a good dose of trust in the process. And, if it's someone I've worked with before, trust in me to sort of experiment and maybe fail a few times before getting it right. It's nice. Not that that always happens, but it's nice to know that you could and you would still be trusted to come up with something better, if that makes sense. It just means that I can start writing music with no sort of mm, concern about trying something a little unusual or going for it, knowing that um, even if somebody's strong opinion is I hate that we'll get somewhere.
That's a
uh,
passionate viewpoint, so that's
yeah,
helpful.
yeah, that we'll like. And I definitely have that with Judd and Mike Bonfiglio, who directed Mel Brooks. Judd and I have done 5 films together now, and sometimes, like, there are moments, like on Mel Brooks, there's a moment where we threw out like half the score, so he has very strong opinions, but he knows that it was for a very specific reason, and we got there in the end. So
Yeah, wow. Okay, that sounds like a big transformation.
yeah.
How about you, David?
Hey, first I just want to say thanks for having me on here. It's really awesome to talk with my peers. I love these two guys. And I really resonated with both of the things that they said. I would just add to that I love to start with as much information as I can get a hold of, to read the script, to watch the cut wherever it is, to talk to them, their biggest fears and hopes for the movie and all that kind of stuff. I want to just know everything that they're coming with to the project. And then, like Jeff Morrow was saying, I love to have the room to try things, experiment, and hopefully not fail, but it happens. You try something and you think this is the killer idea, and it's just crickets when they hear it back, and you're like, okay, let's try something else. And to have that trust, to feel like you can do that and not be worried that, oh no, one bad misstep and then we're off the project. So it's once we get our footing in and we feel like, okay, I can speak in a language that you understand, you speak a language that I can understand, then from there it's all gravy. But finding that is really the sweet spot for me.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Jeff Toyne, Palm Royale has a very distinct visual identity. How did you develop a score that complemented the glamorous world of the series while still embracing the vulnerability of its characters?
Well, let me think. The the show was set in the late 1960s, and at a very exclusive social club in Palm Beach, and so um, the characters are all embarrassingly wealthy, and so they I think part of the way I approached it was to have the music be a part of speaking to the setting, at the time and the place. And so that meant diving into the sonic world of the 1960s, and earlier, because the characters themselves, I think, would have been listening to music from that. I don't think they would have had their fingers on the button of the pulse of the new music. These are slightly older characters, so I think the music wanted to speak to the setting and the place, and now the fact that these characters were so wealthy, I think, allowed them access to all of the fashion of the day and all of the trappings of what it was like to all the art and the design and everything that made the 1960s iconic. So there was plenty of visual inspiration, and I guess we wanted an expensive sound, and I think it's easy to lean on the orchestra for that feeling, and have it, and it's shot in a very cinematic way, and I think we tried to support that with a large scope, with the big ensembles, and again the orchestral palette, and so also easy listening and jazz and Latin spoke to the epoch and the location. As for the vulnerability of the characters, that had to do more with the construction of their themes, when it came to melody and harmony, and when there's moments to present it on a more intimate way. We took that opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds like a good contrast. We've got the big and the intimate. Okay, this one's for everyone, so feel free to chime in. What's a cue or musical decision that almost wasn't the choice made that ultimately became essential to the project? David is busy with his dog. I'm going to ask Jeff Morrow.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'll just continue on the little anecdote I was telling about throwing out half the score, which was that, my concept for the score going in was kind of twofold. Mel has a very strong musical identity because of the music he's written. It's like American Songbook, musicals, thinking of the producers and Springtime for Hitler and all this kind of stuff. But then he was also a jazz drummer before he became a comedian, which is sort of funny. He tells this story. His mother's, I hope I get every detail on this right. His mother's maiden name is Brooklyn, and he was going to go by Mel Brooklyn, but he says he was making a bass drum cover for his band, like that he played in, and Brooklyn didn't fit, so he had to put Brooks. So, I mean, you have to watch it and hear him tell the anecdote, because obviously I can't tell an anecdote like Mel Brooks.
Amazing reason to change your name.
Yeah, so I knew going in that I wanted, drums to be a big thing, and a little bit of this jazz American songbook thing, but always doing it with the lens of a sort of more modern documentary sound. And I had done a full pass of the first part of the film, um, like the first 2 hours of the film,
Wow.
with that in mind. And Judd screened it, and he was like, "Hey, what? Where's the silly stuff?" You know, he's like, "Mel is silly." Like, we're missing the silly music for the score, basically. So we went through, and yeah, there was just, I mean, more than a handful of spots, like almost half the cues maybe, where we thought we could uh punch up the humor a bit. I had sort of done this jazz drums, maybe a little too sophisticated thing, which worked in parts of it when he's talking about sophisticated things or serious things, but other times he's talking about fart jokes, and it just needs to be silly. So we did that.
That does sound essential.
Yeah.
How about you, David?
Of course, I co-composed the music on Hacks with Carlos Rafael Rivera, an incredible friend and collaborator and mentor of mine. And so I think to answer that question, I would go back to season one, where Carlos was the sole composer on the show for season one, and I was brought season two up to the end. But in season one, he wrote the main kind of themes for Ava and for Deborah. And with Deborah's theme, if you know the show, it has taken on a very kind of melancholy, emotional solo piano and string sound. But he, as far as I know, he initially conceived of it as kind of like a rock, up tempo with the full band playing, and it has a much different sound. And every once in a while, we get to use that sound. But I think they heard that and they kind of picked out, the cool notes, the emotion from it. And he said, see if you can arrange it in a way that works for these moments. And he did some and I did some. And so I think that's like the biggest way to answer your question is we thought it's comedy, it's upbeat, it's exciting, but it turned out what we needed most were the moments. It's kind of a reverse of Jeff Morrow's situation in that we needed to not play the funny or the silly at all and let it be serious, and instead find ways to showcase the emotion that, the brilliant actresses give every single time. So it ended up being a much more intimate, emotional sound that carried us through the rest of the show.
I think that's what's so special about comedy is those like emotional gut punches that get you when they're not expected, and I think
It
Hacks
makes
does
the
that so
funnier
well.
moments funnier somehow.
Absolutely. Yes, totally. And how about you, Jeff Toyne?
Still getting used to
Sorry, saying full
request for
names.
full names. No, I understand. It's entirely necessary. I'm thinking of an episode later in the season where Maxine, Kristen Wiig's character, comes to know that she has an identical twin, also played by Kristen Wiig, and in the episode, which has a very climactic ending, the showrunner Abe Sylvia was really inspired by the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and he really wanted to reference the Umbrellas of Cherbourg in this episode. Early in the episode, the characters are at the movie theater and they're watching that movie, and then later the costumes would suggest, there's a yellow, and and they said, look, don't worry about scoring the big, pool scene at the end. Well, the show's been out for a while, I'll say, where we find the twin dead in the pool. Don't worry about scoring that because we're going to license the Michel Legrand music from the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And I said okay. But for whatever reason, I was absolutely inspired by the Michel Legrand music generally, and specifically for the show. for the season. And so I said, look, I have this way of presenting Maxine's theme and her twins theme, and these themes actually, form a mirror musically, but I can do it in a Michel Legrand style that I think is really, really fun, for this scene that you told me specifically not to score. And I went ahead and mocked it up, and I even threw it on the recording session and recorded it. And this was before we found out that they could not get the rights to the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And so when it turned out that they couldn't get the rights, for filmmakers out there, it's one thing to license, pre-existing songs. It's quite another thing to license pre-existing songs that were in a movie, because those rights are owned by the studio, as opposed to a record company. So so now I was like, I happen to have this fantastic sounding demo because it's recorded with live orchestra of this music that fits perfectly for the scene that you told me not to score. And so that was the only time on this show where I got it right, because the opposite happened to me a bunch of times where I went and recorded a bunch of music for scenes that were later completely cut, or characters that didn't exist anymore, or and so this was it was nice to get it right once. So that's in the show.
That's amazing. That sounds very fortuitous. I'm glad you didn't always follow instruction.
Well, especially to have a television schedule and want to record large ensembles, we're kind of taking risks all the time.
Hmm.
We have to gamble, because we don't really have enough time to get the approvals and the vetting of every cue completely solid in time to get paper on the stands for the musicians, in time to get mixed, in time to deliver. So I would, like I said, take managed risks in order to be able to deliver live orchestra to the session. And we got lucky often enough that the score turned out good for the show.
That's amazing. How cool. Jeff Morrow, Mel Brooks has influenced generations of filmmakers. How did that creative legacy inform your score? And was it a challenge to try and live up to it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He's an incredible force. His energy is sort of incomparable, and his career, which is still going at age 100, because he's just finished making Spaceballs 2. Has spanned a long time. That's one of the things that's makes the film so worth a watch, is like there's a lot of things that even if you know Mel Brooks, you don't really know about him that he's done. He fought in World War II. Like, he's the reason David Lynch has a career. Like, there's all these crazy anecdotes that maybe the average Mel Brooks fan isn't aware of. So he's had such long spanning career. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. I knew the score had to sort of evolve over the course of what is about 3.5 hours of film. So, from his early days to where he is now. Yeah, so there are pieces that are just solo piano. I have a sort of main ensemble that was vibraphone, acoustic bass, drums, clarinet, jazz guitar, and piano.
That is a very
And
cool
then,
combination.
yeah, and that was sort of what I used to accomplish most of the score. And then by the time we're at the end of, sort of wrapping things up at the end of the film, and celebrating all of his accomplishments, I got to record a full orchestra for that bit. So yeah, in the end, there's like 100 musicians involved on this thing to bring to do some justice to his career. you know.
Yeah, that legacy is big. It's a burden, I
It
guess,
is,
as a
it is.
composer. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, he's still, you know, he came to the premiere at that point. He was only 99, and you know, it was a tricky
Did he
walk to
like
his
the
chair
music?
on stage, but he's still like has everyone in stitches. He's still super sharp and really funny, which was such a joy to see.
Yeah, I think that's one of the scariest things working on documentaries is a real person is going to hear the music that you've made for their real story. And it's like, do you like it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. Um, this one's for everyone. How do you determine how the sound of a scene should feel emotionally before writing, selecting, or shaping the music?
I'll
David,
jump
I've got
in.
a question coming up for you afterwards. So yeah, let's go with
Okay.
Jeff or but either of the Jeffs.
It sounds like you're asking me what is a spotting session. Uh,
I mean, yeah, kind of. Like how are you finding what that emotional landscape needs to be? What are the discussions you're having about that?
well, yeah, the performances on the screen are the first place to start, but the conversation with the showrunner in this case, I'm really lucky that Abe Sylvia absolutely has a vision for what he's doing, and his his the joy of working on Palm Royale really flowed from the top down. I mean, he really inspired all of his collaborators to be creative and experimental, and feel supported when they had ideas. But we all knew that at the end of the day, um, he really did have a vision for that we could rely on. That he knew what was going to be right for the show, and had that amazing ability to zoom in to something microscopic and but still keep a sense of the entire scene, the entire episode, the entire season. And that's something that I've come to rely on with him. It's easy to become myopic in the work that we do, and be really focused just on our little piece of it. And yeah, I'm absolutely reliant on his ability to help relate whatever we're doing at the moment to the greater context. So I'm really happy to get to work with him at anything.
That's an impressive skill, honestly, being able to hold the vision and the detail in your mind at the same time.
Even more than that, I don't know how these filmmakers go on when they lose limbs and children and all of they start these projects with these visions, and then they can't get the location they wanted, and then they can't get the costume that they wanted, and the actress that they really wanted actually fell out, and then they couldn't afford. I don't know how they keep the project in their heads, having
Hmm.
lost so much. I think it would drive me crazy to watch a scene and know, oh, there was supposed to be something else. Every time I see it, I see like I remember when this was longer, and no, but now it's shorter. That ability is also something that I'm very impressed by.
The constant evolution. How about you, David?
Uh, Piggybacking off of that, working on Hacks, our showrunners, Jen Statsky, Paul W. Downs, and Lucia Agnello, they have a very similar skill set. And it was really amazing to watch. And I bring it up because it oftentimes informed the music that we wrote, because they would say, this was supposed to be this way. They were supposed to have this thing, and then the joke would have been XYZ, but we had to change it in the moment. So now we want the music to do something slightly different. And I always found that really exciting because nothing is set in stone. They're always willing up until the very last second to make the joke better, make the joke funnier, make the scene funnier, make the show better. And so we get to be a part of that, which is really cool. Obviously, you have conversations like Jeff Toyne was saying in the spotting session, they're also very good, specifically on hacks. They're very good at showcasing what they want with temp music. They've got a really good vision or some kind of audio vision for what the sound should be. And when they hear it, then they know it. And so they find a temp track and they say, hey, if you stick close to this thing, then we're going to be happy. There were often times where we would say, here's one version that sticks close to the temp music, and here's another oddball version that's totally different, and maybe you're not going to like it at all, but we wanted to try it. And they would pick that one, more often than you would think. Or the combination of those two ideas would set us off on a journey to get to version number 8 and number 13 and number 20. And that is a really fun journey to go on, I think. You start here, but then everything affects it. Everything changes what you're doing until you eventually come up with something that no one would have guessed at the beginning of the process when you all sat down to decide what it should be. And that is one of the most rewarding parts of it for me. I'm sorry?
Yeah, totally. That is really exciting, like to be able to sort of roll with the punches in that way, and for the creators to be on the same page about that, because I think, sometimes as the composer you're pushing, but the other person isn't necessarily, but it sounds like they really were.
I find on a documentary, there's a sort of specific process to that works for me, which is that if I sort of try to tackle it scene by scene, just the sort of mechanics of writing the music for under someone talking, which is what a lot of documentary film scoring is, can lead to me ending up a little more generic than I would want. So when I'm doing a documentary, I tend to write a lot away from the movie. So 8, 9, 10, 2-3 minute tracks that I have kind of in the bag and everyone's listened to, and often they'll be like, oh yeah, I love number 3 or whatever. Then I don't get too much feedback on it until it's actually in the movie, but then I've spent at least in that time I'm spending the time on making music that's good and interesting to listen to, not on necessarily trying to fit it to the exact rhythm or emotion of a scene. And it just allows me to separate that process a little bit. And with the case of a comedian, what's kind of cool is going into it, they all have like a rhythm in their delivery and a specific energy that is pretty helpful in coming up with music, like the other film I did in this sort of format was the George Carlin one, that with the same directors, and like he has a much different delivery than Mel, and even just that is gonna inform a very different sound to the score. So then and also going into it, I've now done enough documentaries, like there's a certain, I don't know, there's like probably 6 or 7 types of music that I know are going to be needed. Like
yeah, and
upbeat,
doc is interesting like
medium,
that.
whatever.
Right.
There's a certain and then specific to documentaries also, I feel like you don't want to push. You have to be really careful about the music pushing too hard. Because if you're like trying to juice the emotion out of a scene where someone's describing something that actually happened,
right,
it's like pretty easy to go over the edge. In a narrative structure, you can go a little harder and get away with it. In fact, I think you have to go a little harder to sort of get the emotion required. So yeah, sitting down to write a particular scene, I would, watch it and try to sort of hold in my mind the feeling it's giving me, and then maybe there's a piece of music I've already written that works for that, or just an element from it, and go from there.
Yeah, I think it's really cool you had like your own little library. I think often, you're making reality cinematic, but as you say, you also don't want to go too hard on that. It still needs to be believable and sort of based in our world. So I think that makes sense that you were like keeping yourself ambitious with your library.
Yeah, well, and part of it is getting people's, like, you know um making thing like this is a whole process, and people's first impressions of music is a very tricky thing.
Mm,
And if you want to try to do something interesting, it's helpful if they've heard it at least once or twice before it's in their movie. um so if I'm trying to do something a little oddball, at least I've sent them a folder of tracks like a month or two before, and they've had them, they've maybe heard them a few times. It's not like all of a sudden um it's jarring to them, when they've been used to a piece of temp that's maybe just like some totally boring piano arpeggios or something, and and then all of a sudden, I don't know, I give them a jazz drum solo or something. I don't know, like, as an example, like, they're not, it's one they've heard before. It's not like,
yes.
they're not like, whoa, what is this? They're like, oh yeah, oh cool, they've heard it before. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
yeah.
a good idea. This kind of runs on from that actually. This one's for David. Comedic timing is essential to a series like Hacks, but music timing is just as critical. How do you know when a musical cue should lead a joke, follow it, or disappear entirely?
Always we're paying attention to what's on screen, of course, but also, like we touched on earlier, we have the conversations with the filmmakers, and they usually have a pretty good idea of what's working in the scene and in the joke and in the interactions between the characters. And so we generally try to follow what they're saying, but of course, there's a little bit of room for interpretation, and like I touched on also. We decided kind of early on that it shouldn't be, let's do a funny piece of music. Oh, it's a joke. Let's do a funny, you know what I mean? You fill in the blanks for whatever that means to you. It was kind of
Right.
playing against that always. And so then I think the timing got slower. I feel that comedic music, often the timing is faster, quicker, more energetic or so. And so we tended to slow things down a little bit and kind of score it like it wasn't a comedy. And Carlos has talked about this a lot too. It's just we listen to what the characters are going through, and we score it like it's a regular movie, like a drama, even. Because there are so many dramatic moments in the show, so many emotional moments. And so it was almost like we didn't think of it as a comedy at all. And I'm not sure that that would necessarily work for every comedy, but for Hacks, that was the balance that was struck, and it was really working. Obviously, as the feedback I've heard, people really like the show, and so for whatever reason, that's what made the timing uh, pan out the way that it did.
Yep. It's so successful. I love the show too. I'm also a
Yeah,
fan.
I will say
Very
that's
kind
the
of you.
sort of feeling that I have. Generally, I think I agree with you entirely about that. In a comedy, you often want to leave, like, funny music isn't funny, which is why I ended up with this sort of situation with Mel, where I was, not doing funny music, but then it turns out there is a level of zaniness and Mel Brooksness that just, demands funny music for his funny
It can't
jokes.
be denied. You see
Yeah.
these movies, you see him talk, and it's like the guy is zany. It's like his picture
Yeah,
should
yeah.
be next to the word zany in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, I have one more question that's for all of you. What has been the most rewarding moment in response to your work?
Hmm.
Anyone can jump in here.
Jeez, rewarding. Mm, I received uh, a SOCAN award, which is Canada's version of ASCAP and BMI, which are these aren't really given out on merit per se, or merit as defined by like a show's popularity, as opposed to anybody judging the quality of anything. But it provided me an opportunity to, like, go on a stage and then accept some MacGuffin in front of my father, who was able to attend, um, and that was really it was shaping up to be a very rewarding experience. And there was a snafu at the ceremony. I was supposed to be able to give like a little thank you speech for like a minute. But this is one of those award ceremonies where they have like dozens to give out, and they're just like, keep it moving, keep it moving. And so only certain people were supposed to be able to give thank you speeches. And even though I was pretty sure I was told I was going to give one, I'd prepared one. When I got up to the stage, I started to walk to the podium, and the stage manager made a mistake and decided that I wasn't one of the people that should give a thank you speech. And I was like, modern equivalent of like, that stick, they're like just pushing me off the stage, like, no, you get out. And so I, as I've been like dragged off stage, I'm just like, thanks, Dad. And I just, and I think he heard me say it. So that was rewarding. My parents live in a small town in Northern Ontario, and the level of popularity of a show I would have to work on in order for them to even be able to see it is pretty extreme. So that was a nice moment that I felt was that's my moment.
That's very lovely. I mean, despite the sort of comedic tragedy happening
there.
there.
It's pretty typical for Canadians to screw things up in a hilarious way. So,
No. How about you guys?
Sure. I will say that this Emmy nomination business is very new to me. It's my first nominations, and
Congratulations.
well, thank you very much. And it feels very rewarding, of course, because I never thought of it. I never thought that it would happen. Carlos and I worked on the show for 5 years, and we're always just basking in the glow of Hacks because people seem to love it so much, and it's gotten all this wonderful recognition. And we're always proud of the music that we've written, but we never thought that it would be nominated. And the music itself wasn't nominated, but our song was, and we were certainly not anticipating that at all. And to be nominated among such incredible other songwriters, Lady Gaga is in there, Trey Parker is in there, the song from the Pit. I mean, the incredible work, and it feels really humbling and gratifying to have people say, "Hey, you guys too did nice job." I will also add to that Carlos is obviously a rock star and done really cool scores like The Queen's Gambit and Listen to Chemistry, and has won numerous awards and all that stuff. And people reach out to him all the time and say, "This thing, I love this so much." But that's never happened to me because I just haven't had that level of project where a lot of people have seen them, And so for people to see Hacks and message me on Instagram and say, I really love this cue that you did. Tell me more about this, or I really love this scene that you guys scored. And that, it almost makes me cry. It's like just somebody reached out and decided to take the time to say, I listened, I appreciate it, and here's a little acknowledgement of it. That means so much to me. I think I'm rambling now, but the question was like,
that's beautiful. Yes,
okay,
yes, it's
there.
really special to have people genuinely engage, and as you say, on a
Yes.
project where it actually is getting to a larger number of people. Like, that's so gratifying, and it's so deserved as well.
Yes.
How about you, Jeff Morrow?
I think just working on a documentary, it's pretty cool when there's a big premiere and a party and the subject is there. It's definitely nerve-wracking. I think for me, like personally, the most rewarding thing is that I sat through, I was maybe 10, 15 feet away from Mel, and we watched the whole thing, and I didn't find my own music cringeworthy, which is like a funny thing to say, but like that's how it works. That was a big deal. I was proud of that moment, and it's pretty. I mean, a Mel Brooks premiere has like some pretty awesome guests too. Like I was sitting a couple seats down from Bill Pullman and all sorts of people. It was fun.
I feel like when you're in a premiere too, you're sort of watching it through everyone else's eyes and ears. So you are
Yes.
really receptive to like what you think they're thinking. And it's like, oh gosh, how does it feel when they're watching it? And it does make you
Yeah,
reflect on what you've written. Yeah.
exactly. And that's where also like it's like some of these thoughts I had while writing is like, oh, how far to push a scene or whatever. Like if I think having done it a few times now, I at least have that in my mind. Like, oh, I'm probably going to be sitting in a room with this person watching this down. So I better not like really, like if I'm talking about something that's sad that happened to him, it should be emotional, but not like, like bum, 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 or like, like I can't like really overdo it.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that sounds like an amazing premiere.
Yeah.
Congrats to all of you. All right, I'm
Thank
going to
you.
wrap this up because we are out of time. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, Jeff Toyne, Jeff Morrow, and David Stoll, for being with us today and this wonderful, wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, all of you. Also, thank you to Impact 24 PR for putting this panel together and to all of you for watching. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Bria.